Okay. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting today, January 20th. It's 5:30 p.m. The land we know as Sequim was once inhabited solely by First Peoples known as the Sklallam people, represented by 3 tribal governments: Lower Elwha Sklallam, Jamestown Sklallam, Port Gamble Sklallam. We serve as stewards of the land within the city of Sequim with the same care and consideration the Sklallam tribe has and continues to provide. This acknowledgement is in respect to the Sklallam people and their history. The Planning Commission serves as an advisory body to the City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide guidance and direction for Sequim's future growth through continued review and improvement to Sequim's comprehensive plan, zoning code, shoreline management, environmental protection, and related land use documents. The Planning Commission will have all the powers and perform each and all the duties specified by Chapter 35A.63 RCW as amended and set forth amended by Ordinance 2009-036, 2009-030, and Ordinance 311. Okay, can we have roll call?
All right, noting 3 absent members, Commissioner Kuntz, Habel, and Lefevre. I will start from there. Commissioner Cummings?
Here.
Commissioner Fain? Commissioner Hewitt?
Present.
Commissioner Mihalik? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily. We do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Okay. And next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We can do that, right? We've got quorum. Yeah. Okay. Commission members have a chance to look them over. Any changes or recommendations? Okay.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Minutes are approved unanimously. Do we have anybody for public comment online or?
There is no one online.
Okay. And there's no one in the audience except our wonderful staff, city staff. Okay, we're going on to general business. And Carla, you want to talk to us about the plan?
Yes, well, I will, as we have been doing all year, I'll give you just a short update. It's also in your Planning Commission packet of a status memo. So as you see, it restarted and refreshed at the beginning of 2026. And then the only difference I would say from last month's is that our last meetings is I included like city council dates on the comp plan and the Title 17, which is on page 1. And then on page 2 is the comprehensive plan council date. So you could kind of see the dates beyond when you're done, because you'll be done, all things being hopeful and going well, you'll be done at the beginning of May with the comprehensive plan work that's on the schedule. So the only thing I just want to note then, in addition to that, and see if you have any questions, is that we're looking forward to hosting our first developers forum this Thursday at 8:30 to 10:30. And what we have planned is to, hopefully we have good turnout, and then Travis will be giving the PowerPoints that he's given to you. So the one last week that I gave plus the one tonight, we'll put them together, and it will give them a good overview of kind of the amendments that are being proposed. And then hopefully we have a good and engaging question and answer. So we're gearing up for that this week. And kind of all the procedural elements are underway. We'll be issuing our SEPA notice on Friday and putting together all the noticing requirements for your guys' public hearing on February 17th. So any questions on, we're just beginning, but lots of good work ahead of us.
who's coming to the developers meeting? Right?
Yeah, we're not sure. No, Emily's asked for RSVP. No one's RSVP'd, but Emily, you want to kind of just say like who's been invited? I mean, we have a developers forum that established a number of years ago, and is it kind of all the primary developers that have worked in Squim? Okay.
Yep, and I forwarded the email to the NPBA, different businesses around the city. So, yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. But we'll have coffee and donuts, and
Yes.
if we have 1 or 15 or 20, we'll be ready for them. But come by around 10:30, and if no one shows up, you can grab a donut. And
Did you advertise donuts were going to be here?
we did actually. Emily did, yes.
Okay. I'm really glad that's happening, by the way. I think that's a really smart thing to do and overdue.
Yeah, and you'll see too that we have another one scheduled in April that will be focused on the comprehensive plan and the development regulation package that will accompany the comprehensive plan.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, any questions? Okay, well,
Just one. In your table on your updates,
Yes.
could you move the February 9 up so that it's kind of sequential? It's on page 2 of your.
They're different. They're two different tables.
Ah,
That's why. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah, okay, good. Well then it's not. Yeah, so the first table is what we're working on right now, Title 17 and Chapter 1821 supplemental housing requirements. And that's the schedule for that. And then the second page is the draft comprehensive plan, the map in our second batch of
Okay.
development regulations.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Makes more
welcome.
sense.
I could, if you want, I could just combine it all into one long table like I had done last year. I just kind of separated the two because they're kind of two concurrent and parallel efforts, but not the same. But
yeah,
I have a schedule that just has it all combined because we're working on both of them at the same time.
I don't want to make work. I just thought it was just the one. I don't want to
Okay.
create more work for you. It's fine.
Great. Thank you.
any other questions? Okay, we're moving right along. Travis, you going to tell us about the Squim Municipal Code updates, Title 17?
Yes, I'll let Emily get the presentation up and then we can pick up where you guys left off.
Preface by saying, like I did last meeting, but because you're here, I'm going to do it. Travis just did an excellent job taking this code, rewriting it from the beginning to the end. We worked hard at it. He put a lot of thought and energy to it. So I'm glad that you're here to do the second half of the presentation.
Okay, so yes, we are talking Title 17 land divisions. Today we're going to do 1760 through 17110. There you go. We'll start with administrative lot splits and kind of same as last time, we'll go over what kind of the new code is proposing and what the old code maybe did or didn't do and what the impact or benefit of that is. So kicking it off with, well, I guess we'll go to the next slide, which is again kind of same as last time, what the purpose of all of this is. So just updating and getting more getting a more modern, clear, concise, and easy to administer code, not only for ourselves, but for developers who are prospective developers and want to kind of get an idea of what they need to do. And, if it's clear to us, hopefully it's clear to them. And current code sometimes it leaves some questions. And so again, on the flip side of if it's clear to us, if it's unclear to us, it's certainly likely unclear to developers. So that's kind of where we were approaching this from, is like, how do we make this more accessible, easy to read? And, really it can benefit when we do have pre-apps with developers so that they're coming in at a better starting point. And so we're not kind of all needing to start from ground zero of like, all right, here's the process here. Like we will go over that, but it should at least be more of a confirmation of beliefs or thoughts, rather than a full uh, classroom 101 on development in SQUIM. So anyway, so we can jump right in. I think the next one's an overview. So again, today we're picking up where we left off. Like I said, this is just a reorganization, trying to be a lot more logical, and just really work better within the code itself across multiple different chapters or titles. All right, so this is a new one. This is another one that was implemented from or came down from the state. So this was not one that we came up with or crafted out of thin air. This is one that the state is saying we need to do. And so the premise of this is implementing that RCW 5817.145, which is specific for administrative lot splits. The code is based pretty much entirely off of that section in the RCW. We did not stray or deviate from it. We just put it into code to hopefully make it more digestible than trying to read an RCW, which if you guys have done can be, depending on how it's written, either really fine or really difficult. So we turned it into a code that's hopefully easy to administer. I mean, this is a new one, right? So there could be some growing pains. There's not a lot of folks that have really implemented it yet. So as far as success stories or how it's worked, we will probably all find out together across the state. So what the goal of this is to allow an additional residential lot to be created from an existing residential lot. And so what that it's an administrative process in the sense that it's not a short plat. So while there is a survey required, it is not a short plat. So it can be processed concurrent with a building permit. You can split off a piece of your land and that is recorded on a survey that could then be, it will be restricted, but that can be used for, as the state defines it, middle housing. And so that'll obviously depend on the zone, because if you're in the R4 zone, then like the uses you're limited to would be obviously plexes per the administrative conditional use permit. But say you're in a zone that is not exclusively commercial, allows some residential uses, a lot split could be used to provide for things such as 2 or more units, whether that's attached, stacked, clustered homes, including duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, fiveplexes, sixplexes, townhouses, stacked flats, courtyard apartments, and cottage housing. So it's really just a way to create some more land, to provide housing in different ways, and then kind of put some structure behind that from an administrative standpoint that doesn't have to go through the full platting process, short plat process, I should say. So yeah, the impact is this draft provides a process for this to follow the state requirements to allow a single lot to be created via lot splitting. And I'll just also add that even though you can put multiple units on there, it still has to meet density. So density still would prevail in our R4 district, whereas everywhere else it just has to fit. So any questions specifically about this one or how we're going to administer it?
Questions on what you have written in the ordinance? Is
Okay.
that what you're at? Yes.
We can do
Oh,
it now. That's fine. Yeah.
Whichever way he asked if there were any questions.
I'm good either way. Yeah. If we want to just do it now, I think I'm happy to do that. So
Okay. Is there a fee?
there will need to be. I don't believe we have established one yet, but yes, there will need to be a fee.
Okay.
And so that is a good question that we'll need to address. We weren't, yeah, no, but if we were gonna do it, it'll probably be similar to like a site plan
Okay.
permit fee.
It just doesn't stipulate. that-
Yeah. No,
Okay.
that's
The way you have the development standards written 1760 330 I portion of it says that newly created lots after this are not authorized. But then at the end of the chapter, when you get to 1760.070, it seems to conflict with that.
What was the first reference?
When you get to 1760.30,
Uh-huh.
development standards, and you go to I, it's a lot split has been approved by the director, includes condition on the face that further lot splits of the parent lot and newly created lot are not authorized. In other words, once you do it, you don't do anymore, right?
Yeah, you can't use this process.
But then when you go to 1760, 70 on the last page, it says that if a lot split results in a lot of a size that would allow for further land division, the lot is not eligible for a lot split, but may be divided under other applicable
Yeah.
subdivision.
So this. I'm glad you brought. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because that A in 070 comes straight from RCW, and it has tripped me up probably every time I've read it. So because you can read it in a way that almost makes it seem as though lot splits can only create lots that are like 2 times the minimum lot size. So in essence, they can't be further divided.
Right.
But I've gone and I've looked at other jurisdictions that have already adopted this, and they've written that one as more of a note on the survey. So it's if the result is lots that can be further divided, then you can't. So it is a bit redundant. I'll say that from the 030 that you referenced above, and then having it in here again, because they're essentially saying the same thing, that like you can only use this administrative lot split process one time,
Once.
right? So if your parent lot uses it and then the lot that's created is created through it, the parent lot and the created lot cannot use the lot splitting process again. And if they're of adequate size to be further divided, they have to be done. It has to be done through a different land division process. So I was going to ask if you have any suggestions for rewording that specifically, because it
Yes,
has gotten
What you
me.
just said,
Okay.
that's perfect.
Okay.
But you just have to explain that it's not that it's not authorized, it's just that it would have to go through
Okay.
the subdivision
So
process.
I'll work on that because
Okay.
as I was prepping for this, I read it and I was like, oh yeah, here, let me type out like how I want to explain that. And then I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute. That's not what that means. And then I went and looked at other jurisdictions, and they are just basically requiring it as a note on the survey for the admin lot split. And I think that's a pretty good way to do it, because then it's clear, like, yeah, you can do it, but this is your one. This is it. You get it once, and that's that. So, yes, thank you. And did the same thing. So.
Let's see. As we're talking about residential, I would presume that the newly formed lot would then have all the other residential characteristics of the comprehensive plan, which would, to keep the neighborly feel, would have a sidewalk. And would the street be the same width? It would not be a little alley?
This would not require improvements necessarily. So because this isn't going through a subdivision process, the trigger for those improvements wouldn't inherently be required.
Oh, so then you'd be creating non-standard residential lots?
Well, it's a process to create more housing without having to go through the full platting process that would require those improvements. And that's why it's restricted to just one, and you can only do it once, is so that you're not circumventing platting, because in the instance that you do want to more further divide it, you would have to utilize and provide improvements. But this would be kind of aside from that. So it is being done as a way to incentivize middle housing and as a way to not require a lot of barriers, which sometimes improvements are considered.
Well, will there be access for emergency vehicles, for trash vehicles?
Yeah, so
for mail?
they'll have to provide access from the parent lot if it's not provided from direct public streets.
What I'm thinking is to avoid the situation that happened maybe around 2021 in Talon Court, where a deep lot was allowed to be subdivided administratively, that created an alley and did not have sidewalks and was not in keeping with the nature of that subdivision, which had a rider that would penalize any protests by $600 of residents in that HOA, and which forced that new development to create its own HOA separate from the previous one. And it seemed like it was a flagrant violation of the spirit of the comprehensive plan. At least this is just limited to one lot.
Yeah, and so that one that you're talking about, that was a driveway that was allowed to be created. So
yes, sort of an alley driveway.
yeah, so it was a shared driveway to create 3 new lots, and it was a while ago. So I don't remember entirely how it came to be approved, but I know that it was approved as a shared driveway for the 3 new lots. And it is within an existing subdivision, but they had an oversized lot that was able to be divided, and that's what they chose to do. So, and the lot the street that they had frontage on was deemed to be, I believe, Miller Road at that point, and Miller Road was sufficient, and they weren't accessing it directly. So
I don't think they could access to Miller Road. They had to go
Correct.
back to Talon.
right. So they go through the Talon Court subdivision.
Okay, anyway, this would not allow, only one house would then have a shared driveway.
It could, like I said, it could extend to things like duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, fiveplexes.
Right.
Depending
The extra
on the
lot.
zone. Right.
I see.
Yeah. In the single family residential, it would be anywhere from a single family home up to a fourplex with the approval of a administrative conditional use permit there as well. But just to do the lot split doesn't necessarily require the lots to be developed. It is also just a way to create a lot to then sell to somebody else that could then develop it, similar to a vacant piece of land that's out there today that doesn't necessarily have improvements that somebody just wants to put one residential unit on, or as the zone would allow. And if you're just doing one, it doesn't always include frontage improvements. But those are conversations we can have with the engineering department to see, what they might require. But I think as far as just doing the lot split itself won't require the frontage improvements, but subsequent development could. I don't want to say it won't, but it could. But this is not going to be the thing that triggers it.
Is the fire department consulted that the new lot would have access to services?
Yeah, so it's a requirement that they'll have access. Like we're not going to let a lot get created that doesn't have dedication, whether that's through an easement or they will have to provide access at least to some degree to get to the home. But similarly to large lots that are, just set back from the road quite a ways by their own private driveway, it would be same sort of situation. So
Yeah, then they'll be rolling trash bins down to the end of because the garbage vehicles won't be able to turn around.
correct, and that'll be up to them and the trash company to sort out.
Okay, so basically we're avoiding the neighborly qualities of the comprehensive plan to create more housing.
Yep, and this is a state mandated requirement, so we can't. It's not up to us, so we just have to enforce it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, on 1760030 E, I completely understand that we're implementing what the state has asked us to. I think the wording here sounds a little ominous to somebody who's going to go through this process. And I know that's probably the wording, but I don't know if you want to just truncate it with something like must recommend a displacement mitigation strategy, period.
Just shorten it.
I mean, just shorten it up a little bit because I mean, the rest of that sentence sounds a little overwhelming, just to read it in code.
Sure. Okay.
And that, I don't know if everybody else feels that way or not, but.
I,
Less words are sometimes a good thing. So
uh I got a clarification, me and definitions. It's got so it says that this could be only happen once on a parent lot. So what if the owners of the parent lot sold it and somebody came in and, well, I want to divide it again? Could that happen, or is it just designated
that's
once it's sold?
yeah. So that's why there's survey requirements. So even though it is not a subdivision, a short plat or a subdivision, there is a requirement to produce a survey that indicates that the lot has been split, and there have to be notes on there indicating that it can't be done again.
Okay.
So it'll be as tight as it can be without an actual plat.
I think
The next one. Don't interrupt. Tori. Given what you've said, I don't want you to lose your train of thought, but a narrative explaining compliance with all applicable standards. You have said there are no standards.
So there's
You-
there's
you
development
basically
standards in
said-
030. So that would be these development standards for the administrative lot split.
So that is it. No compliance with the comprehensive plan.
Well, to some degree, I mean, there obviously the comp plan's still going to govern the use of the land. So while the split allows a new lot to be created, the development of the lot would then still have to meet all applicable standards. But that could happen at a later date. It could happen concurrently, but that permit, if there's a subsequent permit, would still have to do everything that is required through code at that time.
Right, but I don't think the state wants to take away your ability to also give credence to the comprehensive plan. So in the development standards for this, since it's not been done before, you could put that in there.
Good. The H.
That works great,
Okay.
yeah. And then one other, who defines an A1 administrative review? Is this out of RCW?
Well, so A1 is ours, right? So that's just what we call an administrative review. So we have application types in 2001. And so
Okay.
our administrative review is A1. And so the distinguishing factor between an A1 and an A2, both are administrative. A1s do not require public notice, A2s do. So this one would not require any public notice. It's as administrative as it gets.
So no sign, no
Correct.
nothing for the neighbors to know that,
Correct.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay. Go ahead, Larry.
And just one last, I think you've already put a corral around some of the concerns with 1760-070C, where you say that the lot splits must not permit circumvention of zoning, density, or other development regulations. So I think that, I mean, yes, this is new. There's some things to be worked out, but I
Yep.
think that's probably coming from the state too, saying, we're just letting you split a lot.
right.
But you got to comply with everything else that's
Yep.
in
After
the
after
comprehensive
that,
plan.
exactly. After you
Yeah.
created the lot and you go to develop it, like it's not a
Then you go into the
free-for-all.
rules about sidewalks and
Yep.
spacing and all that
Depending
other
on
good stuff.
what you're proposing, that is the case, right? So
Yep.
it's like if you've got a large lot and you want to break half of it off and sell it to somebody else because you're not going to use it, and they want to develop it, this is kind of the process for doing that, and then they can figure that out. And the nice thing is, in doing this, we can restrict it, in the zones that are mixed use. If they choose to do it, we can restrict it for housing. So then if you want to use the administrative lot split, you can't break off half your lot and then sell it and have a business pop up. It would have to be done for housing. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the most eventful of what we've got today because it is new and it is. I was disappointed to miss the unit lot subdivision. I'd mentally prepared for that one a lot, but I'm sure it went great. All right, you want to go to major subdivisions? Okay. Okay, so as you may have noticed, we now have a chapter for major subdivisions and minor subdivisions under the current code. It is all just one. There are pros and cons to that. We felt it was cleaner to just separate them out, provide the standards like, hey, I want to do a major subdivision. Here's how you go about that. And if you want to look at a short plat and a minor subdivision, you can go to that section or that chapter. Some big updates, of course, are the bump up similar or consistent with what we did with minor subdivisions, since minor subdivisions are going to go up to 9 lots. Major subdivisions now start at 10 as opposed to 5. There's obviously some stronger alignment with the transportation master plan, engineering standards, fire code, appendix D. A lot of that's in earlier sections of Title 17 that you guys looked at previously. But this just kind of reaffirms that linkage and that connection between those new sections, making it reference our standardized certification dedication language. We have a set of guidelines that we keep that Public Works, DCED, and the legal department have worked on. It allows us to just, as new things like an administrative lot split or unit lot subdivisions come up, we can just modify that document and then we can just reference it in code. And as things need to be updated, we can update that and don't have to go through a code amendment process. So it just makes this a little bit more adaptable to changes in the future. And then updated expiration extension criteria to be more in line with how we would like to administer that. The state requires, for major subdivision requires that they're good for 5 years. We've gone ahead and we're just going to give 2 1-year extensions as freebies. With as we experienced through COVID with changing, market conditions and just shortage of certain things, instead of maybe necessarily needing to do some sort of an emergency ordinance or things like that, we've just already kind of preloaded 2 extensions there as needed. And then there is an option for a third, but that one will need to show good cause. Like you've been trying, but maybe there is a shortage in materials, or, what we experienced during COVID specifically was a shortage in like generators and things like that. So maybe there's just something that hasn't quite resolved or sorted itself out yet, and they can kind of make that case to us, and we can determine whether or not we think a third extension is necessary. The current code, it was a bit of a confusing application requirement process. There's multiple sections throughout Title 17, the current one. There was a codified application submittal checklist, but then there were submittal document requirements in the actual subdivision section of code. And then couple that with we have an online platform now that has its own checklist and things. So we really tried to simplify that and just make it so that the things that are listed in these land use processes are just specific to that, and then rely back on more of a standardized application requirements, but then reference that they'll all be included on our online permitting portal, or where they can be viewed, and then that is the requirement for getting submitted. So also big focus on improvement requirements where they're necessary. Again, a lot of that's really touched on in earlier chapters that I think you guys looked at previously, but our goal here was to substantially improve cohesion with the other codes, have greater legal defensibility, and just be a more well integrated planning framework. So, questions on this one? This is our bread and butter, I will say. Like, this is what we do the most of. So,
You list the fire code. At what point does the fire marshal get to see the plat?
so Joel's in pre-apps depending on what it is, right? So like a major subdivision, we would have Joel there. We've also recently been coordinating with Fire District 3 specifically and having them come to pre-apps as well. They get invites, and if it seems like one that's noteworthy to them, they'll show up. We're really committed to having a really fluid relationship with them. Like, obviously Joel's the fire marshal, but the equipment is coming from Fire District 3. And so while he's kind of their voice on staff, if you want to say it, put it that way, we do lean on them to say like, hey, what do you have? Like, what's the turn radius of your vehicles? Do you want to do a site visit? Like, are you able, what do you need so that we can try to work with them and get the things that are necessary? Specifically for Fire Code Appendix D, I mean, I think a lot of that was touched on in the street standards previously, but it's the requirements that we want to impose are being imposed because of emergency vehicle access. And so we just felt it was right to be consistent with that, as opposed to trying to layer on our own requirements on top of that. If that's our baseline, let's start there and see what happens.
And do they sign off on the plat, the final plat, before filing?
What? They don't. Yeah, so Joel will review it and he'll make sure that it meets, the fire code standards. He doesn't necessarily sign off on it, but when Carla gives her DCED signature, it is with the knowledge that Joel has approved for fire. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just have a question on 1770-070. This is the expiration and extension of preliminary approval. Is the 5-year, is that like a hard coded into
Yep.
the world of, okay.
Yeah, so that's
So there's no
in our CWO.
disadvantage. Every city, every county,
Yeah,
it's all, okay.
it's all,
That's
it
all.
starts at 5, and then, there's nothing that requires us to allow extensions in RCW, but
But we're doing it out of the goodness of our heart.
we are.
Are we consistent with the other cities in the county and the county itself?
I did not specifically look at other cities. There are some in the more metro areas that don't do extensions at all. It's just 5 years, and
So
that's it.
sometimes I hear that we're not very developer friendly.
Right.
And
I was
and-
going to say, this actually was a direct response
Yep.
to request by developers to allow additional.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but things do move a little slower out here sometimes. And so with that in mind, 5 year or 8 years is kind of like 5 years over on that side of the pond. So
okay, but the developers move a little slower too. It's not, it's just everything.
Yeah,
It's not us, right?
right. It's
all
not.
of
Yeah.
us.
I was told once that we're about 10 years behind the I-5 corridor out here. So, but anyway.
Alex, you got it?
Yeah, pardon me if it's stated and I didn't see it. But all roads, sidewalks, storm drains would be, and streetlights would be donated to the city. Is that
Yeah, so
correct?
the most improvement stuff was probably touched on in the land development standards or land use standards in previous section or chapters, but this does at least say that it's required per those standards. And if it's going to be in public right of way, then absolutely it's going to get dedicated to us. Now, stormwater, we don't necessarily want.
Yeah, it's not, I guess it would be gutters leading to the local retention pond.
Like
or
if
something.
there is city storm infrastructure, yes, but I know that the move has been to have the city not maintain and operate new development storm systems. Those would be owned, operated, and managed by the HOAs. But if it does connect, because I mean, I think there are some out there that are city maintained, but if for whatever reason there was a connection that happened, then yes, the necessary dedications would be made. And I think there is something in there that is, and I think it's in earlier chapters, that is kind of per the discretion of the city engineer. So if Nick or Paul were to decide that, hey, we need this dedicated, they have that ability.
I've got one about, it mentions the hearing examiner, and that's come and gone. But so currently we have a full-time hearing examiner and we keep them busy.
Well, not currently, but I haven't seen him in a while. But yes, when
He had like
development's
3
going,
in 24. So
yeah,
yeah.
we had a busy 24, but it's been quiet kind of since then. But yes, he is, as far as I know, still under contract.
Okay.
And Emily will be the one to be monitoring that.
And that's still a good thing.
Yeah, right. She's on it. So
It's much better having a hearing examiner than
oh yeah, I totally agree.
former
So,
process. Okay. Just hopeful that was right, the answer.
all right. Okay, let's go binding site plans. Okay, so our draft code is an effort to streamline the process, making it easier to understand and follow. Because I will admit, the binding site plan code is unique. Maybe in the way SQUIM has been administering it, or how it had it in code. But it seems like there are jurisdictions across the board do it either very simply, or it can get pretty complex. There's a lot of good RCW that we've gone ahead and just put in code verbatim. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, or we've just said, hey, this is what the RCW says, this is what we're going to do. We've updated them all to be administratively reviewed. So site plans will be basically approved by Carla, with obviously the guidance of other departments as well. And then it's just, a better integration with our final recording process, as currently there's reference to binding site plans under the final plat process, but we've gone ahead and really embedded final site plans into that final plat section, as we'll get to in a little bit. But it was just an effort to really make the process clearer. Like, when is this applicable? When does it make sense to use a binding site plan? Because it's not always a requirement to use one, but when should you, or when does it work? So current code requires a hearing examiner review for binding site plans that are proposing 4 lots or more than 4 units. And essentially that is a link to SEPA. So when SEPA is required currently on a binding site plan, it triggers the need for a hearing examiner. SEPA itself does not require going to hearing. So and there's no state requirement that binding site plans need to be reviewed by a hearing examiner. It's totally normal for them to be administrative. So what we're doing is we're making this a more accessible process. A use of a binding site plan can be for things like condos, commercial strip mall development, where you've got individual units that want to be sold. And so this is our attempt to make this code make sense and be better approachable. So Aaron's got questions. I can see it.
So I'm a little, how do you conditionally approve a multifamily development? Conditionally, since conditionally doesn't give it vested rights as permanence, and you're developing housing. And that's one of the first thing. Per RCW, binding site plans may be used for, and an A, and at the last one, or conditionally permit any multifamily residential uses. Are you going to tear them down if they don't
Yeah.
meet the conditions of the permit?
And so that is one of the most recent binding site plan updates from the state, was to include this provision that commercial development allows, or commercial development includes multifamily. And so the way that I read that is that any property or any zone that would outright allow multifamily, or any property or zone that would conditionally allow multifamily, if multifamily is proposed, can utilize the binding site plan process. So in the R4, where we have the ACUP process, a BSP could be used for the development of multifamily.
So I think what you're saying is that if we allow it through a conditional use permit or an administrative conditional use permit, so that word conditionally is referring to the CUP or the ACUP.
Yeah. So it's referring to this, basically the use table in your zoning code. If your zoning code allows multifamily either outright or conditionally through a conditional use permit, then you can utilize the BSP for those properties.
Okay, you just stated it differently than you've stated it in the ordinance. So that would be conditionally as per, and that gives it clarity. Otherwise, it sounds like a conditional use permit to do a multifamily housing project.
Well, you may need one in certain zones. Yeah.
Yeah, but as per, yeah, but it just needs a little tightening up there.
Okay. Yeah, and this is where I wish the state would have probably these similar types of I mean, I'm sure they do, but they give us the wording, and then this is where we end up,
That's-
right? We're like, what does that mean?
Pretty extensive.
Yeah. So, but that is probably one of the most recent updates to the state's binding site plan code, or RCW, is that kind of consolidating of commercial and multifamily being the same. So, or similar.
I'm on the next page, bullet 4. It kind of reads funny because it says in the county in which the land is located. It sounds like that's probably a cut and paste out of the state guidance, the very top of the page, bullet number 4.
Got it. Okay.
So maybe just say with the county auditor, or whatever title we use. I think the Clallam County Auditor is where it should be recorded, not
Okay.
because
And actually, no, thank you, Larry. And I do want to also add that there is an omission in the draft that you have, and it is under expiration, or I guess the expiration and extension of BSP approval. There is no expiration listed in your draft, but we are just going to use the same expiration criteria as a major subdivision. So it'll be
Okay.
good for 5 years. And then it'll just be more specific to a site plan as opposed to a plat. So, but I've added it in mine, but it'll just read ABC, similar to major subdivisions. So just wanted to point that out. Get ahead of it before somebody.
Your abbreviation for BSP sounds great, but somewhere we need to be consistent. We either say binding site plan or
Okay.
BSP.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is kind of to Larry's point, is if it was just a verbatim rip of the state RCW, it may not. So yeah, we can
Okay.
go back and modify.
And on application requirements, 1780.050, number B. B is a duplicate of the number 10 above it.
That for the E's.
Legal description of the property and any divisions, and then B is legal descriptions of
Yep.
the proposed lots and
Yeah.
easements.
And right. We'll
Clarify that, yeah.
wordsmith it.
Yeah, because what it is, 10 is
Right.
And B is talking about the green.
Right.
One is existing conditions and B is future conditions.
Yeah, so we could, we can either consolidate or add existing legal descriptions of the property and any divisions to 10, or we can just splice them together. So,
I have one on the final page, 36. We're ready for that?
Sure. Is it part of binding site plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question on, it's 1780-060. Looks like it's bullet number A5 on page 36 of 44. We specifically say that we want safe walking conditions for students who walk to and from school. Do we want to narrowly define it that way, or do we want to just have safe walking conditions for anybody who might be walking?
that's a good one. And it is, while this one isn't, so this was kind of we brought it over from subdivision RCW requirements where there is a requirement for safe walking routes for students. And so while binding site plans don't inherently require that same criteria, we wanted it to be consistent so that even if you're choosing to use a binding site plan instead of a subdivision, that we're not missing out on something or not getting the same level of service for safe routes to school. So, and it is specific to residential, similar to, and that's why it's a multifamily distinction. Do you want?
There's a provision for the major subdivisions and minor subdivisions called safe routes to schools. And so, yeah, so Travis just pulled this over for the residential component. So binding site plans can apply for industrial or commercial projects, which are not necessarily going to have people that are, students that need to walk to school. So, I mean, we certainly can add for all people, including students, and that, I mean, that would be one way to kind of broaden that requirement.
And then it's more binding site plan specific if we wanted to go that route. Oh,
I just know that we talk a lot about having a quote walkable community.
Mhm.
And so that kind of just caught my eye. So whatever makes the most sense for consistency,
Okay.
I'll concede to you guys who know the various
Yeah.
other plans.
Yeah, and I mean it's there, but the kind of the hook that's going to get them to develop it is going to be, our transportation plan that says like, hey, what's the classification of this street? Like, or I guess not that it's going to require them to do it, but to what extent? And so how wide of a walkway does it need to be a shared use path? Those kinds of things. Those will get determined, kind of to some degree, regardless of what the development is, whether it's multifamily, industrial, commercial. Like if it's shown as this type of pedestrian connection here and development occurs, they're going to have to provide it. This is just kind of our way to say, yes, we're going to look for this and we're going to make sure it's there, but we can take a look at rewording that in a way.
Right now, there's no safe walking to school for any families who live anywhere on West Squim Bay Road.
Right.
So are you restricting all future development?
No, they just have to provide it within a proportionate, they have to provide their proportionate share. So if it is adjacent their development, then they need to provide the safe walking path through their development that would get them out of their development, but they're not going to be required to do offsite improvements unless there's some sort of nexus that would create that.
Let's hope they can get a school bus.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, not knowing how West Wimbay's serviced by the school district. So safe walking to school is going to mean two things. If you're in the proximity of a school that is considered walkable by the school district, then that's when a direct that's when we have probably the most ability to do some offsite improvements or additional onsite improvements. If it's considered not walkable by the school district, then what? But there's a bus stop, then we just need to make sure that we provide that the developer, and we require that the safe walking is to the bus stop. So those are the two conditions where that will get applied, how that gets implemented.
Anybody else? Good. Okay. Move on.
All right. Final plats and site plans. So this was again an attempt to make it very clear what the process is for not only your final plats, which can include, your major subdivision and your short plats for recording sake, but also your final site plans, which would be your binding site plans. All three of those have recording requirements. And so this was a draft code that included all of them, provides clarity and criteria and improvements that need to be either done or potentially bonded for, references to that standard city guidelines document, again, just to, really ensure that we're getting it recorded the way we want it to and have it worded the way we want it to. Yeah, so really it's an opportunity for us to just bring this section of code into the present, make it more modern, easier to administer. And yeah. Questions on this one? Hey.
Good job.
Thank you. All right. And vacations and alterations. So this code was a mess. That's probably the nicest way to put it. It was just unclear as to like what the process was. And so, the smartest thing that we can do is, well, what does the state require? And that is, you can't go wrong when you do what the state requires. And for this, it is very clear what the process is authorized by RCW. So that is how we wrote this, is that vacations and alterations are governed by RCW. So our code is going to follow said RCWs. That way there's no ambiguity as to like what's the city's process. Our process is the same as what the state's process is. And so if there are public dedications, there's a hearing involved and it has to go to the hearing examiner. There is a provision in there for short plats that don't have public dedications can be done administratively. And I think Carla and I were talking about it, and there's probably like a 0.05% chance that we'll ever get one of those that doesn't have any public dedications. So at least as it relates to SQUIM, vacations and alterations in the truest sense of how they are applied will likely or will go to a public hearing. There are, there could be Scrivener's errors on recently recorded that is more of a surveyor thing that wouldn't necessarily fall under this section of code, I don't believe. But that's what we're talking about, is you're making alterations to either lot lines in a plat, or you're altering uses. Vacations would be like rescinding the entire plat and it's no longer there. And there are some requirements within those RCWs about like who needs to sign, who needs to be a part of the application, and we will follow those as we are required. So
17100.330 application requirements. The following materials must be submitted to the city for a complete application.
or A.
A.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Then when we get down to 40 vacation criteria, easements established by dedication without the written approval of the easement owner or owners. It's just without the approval of the easement owner or owners. And then the same thing down on alteration. Number 2, easements established by dedication, yada, yada, without the written approval.
Any, Larry? Alex? Any more, Karen? Okay.
All right. And then this last one is probably my favorite of today's. Um, and it addresses it addresses a number of things, but one of my favorite things that it addresses is the Rhode Island issue that has come up in past developments where you had a phased development, and then the last couple phases maybe didn't go, and then you've got this piece of land that is now basically landlocked by private streets or lack of easements, and getting to be able to develop it becomes a nightmare because of potentially HOAs or property owners that now want to kind of get in the way of that. So what this like I said, in addition to other things, just as far as cleaning up the administration of it, making it more clear that you don't need a development agreement to do this. Like this can just be a submittal component of your project if you want to phase it, not limiting it to as restrictive sizing requirements, like just making it more approachable and accessible for developers if they kind of want to, for a lack of a better, take their time or take it in pieces to see how the market responds. This is what they can utilize. But to that Rhode Island point, this is going to require them to dedicate easements or to at least open up the street up to the next property owner. And there's a very explicit dedication for future access to that property. And then we will be able to, review it accordingly to ensure that it's written in a way and done in a way that is usable, not just, yeah, it's there, but what does it actually say and what does it actually grant them to do? This is our goal behind this, was to really respond to some of the issues that exist right now in SQUIM. Maybe it doesn't fix the ones that are current and existing, but it will prevent future ones from happening. There's the current code was, it was long, duplicative, had restrictions like up there for 10 or more lots and properties greater than 2 acres. And, we just felt we can make this more developer friendly to some degree, from the sense that let's make it more accessible. Let's let people use it how it's intended, and just see what happens. And it gives us some assurances on obviously getting development in phases, making sure we get what we need either front loaded or that it's adequately spread out so that no phase is getting shorted, and that everything that we require is either, like I said, done up front or it's distributed proportionately in a way that makes sense. So questions on this one? Sweet.
Good to go.
All right. So we'll just summarize administrative lot splits. That was probably the most fun we had tonight. And it is obviously a new process, and one that we may be back here a year from now updating, depending on how everything goes and how the state, whether or not the state makes changes or updates to it. But it's there, and thank you for your feedback. It is very helpful. Major subdivisions, just making it clear, modernizing it, getting it to a point that's readily accessible, easy to read and understand. Binding site plans, again, streamlined for flexibility and administrative approval. Just making it maybe a more attractive development or a land division process for all of our different types of housing that are kind of coming down the pipeline. Hopefully in the future as things change. Final plats, final site plans, just making that more clear. Vacations, alterations, just again updating to be consistent with our required RCWs, and then phase developments, just making it make sense. I think it's the best way to put that. So, any last questions on Title 17? I'm happy to go over anything from the previous meeting if you want to. But yeah, this was Title 17. Any final thoughts on that before next steps? All right, next steps. Thanks, Emily. Oh. So
You're gonna roll.
yeah, what we've got next is we have a package that is we are titling 1821 supplemental housing requirements. So in addition to the land division requirements that are coming from the state, there's a whole slew of housing requirements that are coming from the state. So we took this opportunity because I guess I'll slow down for a sec. We are going to do a full title replacement of 18, similar to what we did with 17. However, we probably aren't going to get to all of it in time for comp plan, or we weren't going to get into it in time to adopt it with all the Title 17 updates. So we've kind of taken the approach of like, let's get the things done that the state's either requiring us to have done already that maybe we don't have things kind of ready to go by before June, which is when some of these are due, so that they're already adopted and we don't have to revert to the state requirements, and to also just kind of work well with the updates we're doing to Title 17. So the chapters we have here, or the sections we have here, will all become their own individual chapters in the future full Title 18 rewrite. But for now, we wanted to create kind of this supplemental housing chapter that is a place for them to live for the time being. So that'll include an update to specific residential use types. So definitions for things like co-living, like group homes and things like that the RCWs have put further definitions to, and that we are required as part of our comp plan update for certain things for like emergency transitional. I guess the acronym is STEP housing and all of the things that go into STEP housing, which I forget the S, but the T is transitional, the E supportive, transitional, emergency, P. It's not a housing type. Policies or program is probably what it is. But so there's just a number of changes to how certain uses are defined, and we wanted to get ahead of it and kind of put those in there so that if somebody wants to take it to utilize them, they can. So that includes a new residential use table that shows where those uses can be done across all of the zones. For instance, the places that allow hotels and motels have to allow emergency, temporary, or basically shelters and things like that. So putting that into a table for the time being before we get to the full residential and zoning chapter rewrite. The definitions for all those have been pulled from RCWs and updated to reflect those changes. So there's a specific 1821 definitions section. There's some residential parking requirements that we needed to update. Thankfully, SQUIM doesn't have to just get rid of residential parking. Like I'm very thankful for that, being out here on the outskirts of the world a bit. ADUs, that is another one that is being passed down by the state. There will be 2 ADUs permitted on all lots that are allowed to build single family residential. So it would, if your zone allows single family, your lot can have 2 accessory dwelling units. Now, if you have HOAs that restrict that, that's the prerogative of your HOA. So, but as far as SQUIM code goes, single family use lots can have 2 ADUs, and those can be attached or detached, and they can be sold as condos and not count towards density. I'm smiling, but we'll see how that goes too. Then we are also writing which I did give you guys a draft a few meetings ago, for the affordable housing exceptions for nonprofits and groups that provide subsidized housing, for ways for them to basically create the developments that they need, without being necessarily restricted by zoning standards, bulk and dimensional standards that lets them get to where they basically need to be to provide the housing that they need to provide. There's a couple of religious property RCWs, one of which is housing on religious properties. That is specifically temporary housing. So it's temporary housing on religious properties. So shelters, there's an RCW that puts a whole bunch of requirements together for cities not being able to restrict religious properties or religiously owned properties from providing temporary shelters. There are some things that we can require, but since we were not early adopters of this process, we do have to follow the RCW essentially to a T. We're going to do that through a temporary use permit, and there are some requirements in that. And then the last one is another benefit for religious properties where they just get an outright density bonus for residential housing on religious properties. Now the RCW doesn't say how much that density bonus is supposed to be. Of course, they leave that to us to figure out. So we, as of right now, are just, I think, proposing just a flat 25%, and we'll see how that goes. So that's our next meeting. So more code. And then, I think Carla shared some of this schedule already. We've got our developers forum on the 22nd. It doesn't sound like we need to do Title 17 again. Nope. All right, cool. So we'll go straight into 1821. I think we could probably get through it all on the 3rd. If not, we can come back on the 10th. Do you have anything else for the 10th? Oh, that's
It's a special.
got it.
in case
Oh,
we
you're
need
right.
it.
Okay. And then public hearing for 17 and 18 on the 17th. So we're just gonna cruise. Yeah, we're on cruise control, right? A really fast cruise control. 5 over, right?
Thank you. Thank you for, it's a lot of hours and hours and hours. And I don't know too many people that could do it besides you
Hey,
to make sense because you've been dealing with.
yeah, and I mean, I can't take all the credit. Of course, we have a great team that supports us. Carla's been great. Scott's been great. Emily's obviously she picks up the phone when anybody calls, so that I don't have to at all times.
Yeah.
I do pick my phone up.
But
But yeah, no, it's been a team effort, and I mean, even working with the public works side of the house to make sure we're not doing anything that's going to get them crossed during their review. So yes, legal doing their review as
yeah.
well. I mean, this has been truly a second floor, all hands on deck. We're still trying to figure out the date that we're going to have a party
there you go.
to celebrate, because
Celebrate.
it's been a long time coming for these updates. So thank you for sticking with us and being a part of it, and
Yeah.
for all the feedback.
Yep. And we'll have the public test it once
Yeah,
it's out there.
Right. Well, and I guess one last thing is the developers forum, they have a copy of this.
Great.
They got it sent. I think so they've had a few weeks with it.
Cool.
So that hopefully at the forum, if they take any issue or have any
Yeah.
issues with it, they can bring that up and we can address it, and then we can say, well, look, we're listening. So
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. Question?
As far as markups, when will we get a copy with the markups?
So we'll make sure that you get a copy of the markup. I have it on my calendar, on my schedule. You'll get it before the public hearing. Your public hearing copy will include your markups from these meetings. Yeah, so you will see it and you'll vote on that draft with your red line, your red line version.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you.
With those edits. Yeah, we should. Yeah, actually, that's true. We should be able to provide you a red line version of 17 on February 3rd. We'll work towards that.
Thanks. Spread out our homework assignment. Yeah. Okay. Next up is director's report. You got any more for us, Carla?
do. Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
Making my note to have a red line version by February 3rd. Okay. I do have a couple things. I just wanted to confirm, I think you did, that we were not going to have a special meeting on February 27th January 27th, thank you, to continue working on Title 17 because we wrapped that up tonight. So we're not going to call for a special meeting on that. I confirm, right? Okay, head nods. I just wanted to note that the moratorium on master plan overlay applications and processing expires at the end of this month. And so I will be going to next Monday's city council meeting with a recommendation to extend the moratorium for an additional 6 months while we continue finishing the comprehensive plan and the development regulations, which is what the initial moratorium was set forth to do. So we'll be, that does require a public hearing to do an additional 6-month extension. So that's occurring on Monday. I kind of did want to loop back on Title 17 because as Travis said, and as I think you know, that this was an extensive effort and something that's been needed and talked about for many years. And so there's a lot of, reward, feeling of reward and accomplishment in getting this Title 17 to the place we're at and close to public hearing. I wanted to note 2 things about this. First, I wanted to say that actually Travis and I and Scott too, as we're meeting with developers in just the last couple weeks, we're able to say, you can't do that now, but, and in almost every conversation. And so I feel like that's been just on the face of that, being able to provide them a pathway where there isn't one now. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. Of course, they have lots of other things to think about them permitting, but permitting's often been the barrier, and we went into this wanting to remove as many barriers as we could that were regulatory in a way that didn't have a substantive need for it. So I just wanted to already report that. In fact, we had a meeting today where today, no, but give us till March, yes. And they're like, okay, that works for us. So I don't know whether they're going to forward the application, but that's not for us. Us is to make sure the permit pathway is available for them. And then the second part of it, I think, and I've said it before, but I'm going to close us out on Title 17 tonight and just saying that when I talked to Travis about Title 17, gosh, back in the spring, I started with saying, you know the code the best when you write the code. You can administer the code the best when you write it. And the city has had consultants write code. There's been piecemealed, Band-Aids to code. There's been something that's come up and we've had an interim regulation for it. And I just want to note that I think it's been cathartic for Travis to write a code from beginning to end that's been problematic or at least difficult to administer over the years. And I think that those are always, as that you learn from those pain and suffering, because he knew how the code needed to be crafted and organized for ease of administration. And there was lots of examples out there that we took a look at, and he settled on, on one that I'm familiar with. So I can buy off on that too, because I know how those work, how they're organized and how they can be. But I really just want to note that at the end of this process, what we have now is a senior planner who is well versed in RCW 5817 and knows our code very well. And even though he's chuckling about it, it will only serve the city in a really good way. And so I just wanted to conclude my director's reports and saying how thankful I am that Travis took on the challenge and how well he did with it. So thank you, Travis.
All right. Look at us at not even 7 yet. Okay, so we're moving on to the good of the order. Anybody have some goodness to share? Oh, man. Make up something. No, I'm kidding. All right. And next is the adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. Our meeting's adjourned at 6:50.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
See you next month.